He comes to me in pieces as I watch the stillness of space, envisioning new constellations in the array of unrecognized stars. I trace the sparks of light with my finger, connecting the dots and smudging the glass as a result. How many stars do you think there are in space? I imagine him asking. Can there really be other ones out there as big as or even bigger than the sun? I always admired his genuine curiosity, how he viewed things with a particular interest, how he saw me. He was the one that organized our sleepovers, the one that nudged me to sign up for after-school activities, such as the chemistry club and the robotics team. Can you build me a mechanical arm that'll change the channels on the TV's remote, so that way I don't have to? He once asked sarcastically. How about a drone that we can use to spy inside the girls' locker room? Huh? Wouldn't that be neat? When we were kids, he would give me piggyback rides and run with me through the sprinklers across watery arches with captured rainbows. We'd go back home, and my mother would scold us, while our shivering bodies shared a single towel, and in the end, he'd shine me a blue-lipped smile with his crooked teeth. That was fun, wasn't it? Our childhood adventures involved trips to the public pool, wet t-shirts, and popsicles mucking up our fingers under the August sun. He'd take me to his baseball team's practices, and I'd watch him bat while I built rovers and complex constructs out of Legos on the bleachers. "Booyah!" He'd shout after a home run. I'd cheer or clap, and he would always gleam and say the same thing. It's going, gone. Kiss that puppy goodbye." A few years later, our tastes matured, slipping our summers into memories and substituting them for leather jackets and motorcycle rides on the empty freeway. He and I would stop on the roadsides by green fields that looked blue under the night sky. We'd sit under the blanket of stars and watch the moon, while dreaming up our futures after high school. "I'm going to apply for a sports scholarship and get the fuck out of this town," he'd always say. "How about you?" "I don't know." I shrugged. "Maybe I'll go work with my dad as an apprentice at his accounting firm." "What? Come on, man, you got to apply for university too. You're a freaking brainiac. I'm sure you could get into any school." Out the bay window, I see the lunar triplets, Euphrosyne, Aglaea, and Thalia dancing around what the New Worlds Association likes to call Undine, the flooded, blue planet, equivalent in size to Jupiter, that I've been studying for what would be measured, on planet Earth, as 8 months. The journey to this specific star system took 4 years. The rest of the crew and I have enough resources to last another 16 Earth months. By then, we'll have made a substantial dent in our research. Our food, water, fuel, along with our tolerance for the presence of one another, will have depleted, and we'll go into cryosleep for our return. A decade, that's how long we'll have been apart. So you'll be asleep, frozen in a coffin for about 8 years. I assured him that it was completely safe, that I wouldn't die in transport. But doesn't that mean that you'll come back looking almost the same as when you left? Won't you technically be younger than me? I think about his current age. How it's already been more than 4 years, and how unfair it must have seemed to him that he'd miss me in the entirety of all that elapsed time, while I'd be sleeping almost all the years away, except for 2. Sometimes I wonder if he tells his other friends and customers about me. "My buddy's up in space," I imagine him saying. "What's he doing up there?" "He's researching a new planet, someplace better than this shithole we're destroying." Undine registers an oxygen signature similar to Europa and planet Earth. The oceanic surface covering the entire planet could host a form of phytoplankton, or an entirely new plant species capable of producing oxygen as a byproduct of their natural photosynthetic process. In other words, Undine could, in theory, host life. If I'm being honest with myself, sometimes I feel that my role on this ship isn't as relevant as the other crew members' works. That perhaps what I'm doing isn't as impacting, that it's less exciting. I'm not spacewalking or trying to merge chemical compounds under zero-gravity conditions. I barely passed a physical exam, and my score on the simulatory emergency program ranked me as the 5th in command, if anything were to happen to our pilot, or the others of my crew. So what? He'd fire. "You'll still be one of the few guys part of the human race to have ever gone up to space. You'll still have broken records, be mentioned in the history books. You'll have gone places no one has ever been to." It was always like him to see the bright side in situations. When he didn't get his full ride to college, he applied for the town's undergrad program at the local college. Don't worry, man, I'm still going to make it back and get myself out of this place. When he couldn't juggle both his academic life and work to help his folks pay the bills, he still didn't crumble under all the pressure. I'll take a break this semester, and then on the next one, I'll go back. He never returned to school to finish his undergrad. Maybe college just isn't for me. He opted to continue working, helping out his folks, and eventually went to, and finished, trade school. I'm thinking about opening a restaurant, he told me years ago. What about you? What are you thinking about doing with your life? Huh, Mr. Big Shot. I'm a certified scientist. I laughed at his remark. I don't know, I answered. I guess I could teach or go for my PhD. What? But you just finished school, now you're thinking about going back, he commented while scratching his beard. He tugged on the bill of his baseball cap and shook his head in disapproval. You're nuts, man. Yeah? And what do you think I should do? If I were as wicked smart as you, I'd go to the moon. Scientists are some of the professionals that, depending on their branch of specialization, are often courted by big money tech companies and international organizations. He heard about a space program from one of his faithful customers, a man that worked as a research assistant for the state university, who always ordered a bear claw with a large cup of coffee and a BLT for the road. He told me how the New Worlds Association was looking for people to blast off, in his own words, into space. That the money I'd receive would leave me set for life. He was the one that showed me the association's website. It says here you have to send them a paper or something explaining your qualifications, along with an idea for a project applicable in space, highlighting a specific area of research. Does that sound like something you could do? Huh? I was distracted at first by the site's banner, a rocket blasting off into the moon, pointing like an arrowhead to the unknown. I think so, I answered, correcting myself. But what if I get accepted? That's what I should have asked. But what if they don't think I'm qualified enough? What if I'm rejected? Then they're crazy, he snapped back. You're the most intelligent person I know. No way, they'd reject you. I pitched him my project several times, letting him serve as my judge and jury. The idea was simple: build a compact remote-operated device that could probe the oceanic planet of Undine. Do you mean like a robotic hand? Exactly, think of it like a hand that's also like a drone, I said. A machine that could enter the planet and try to collect data on whether there are any living organisms present in the planet's aquatic terrain or not. If the scan is positive, it'll extract several samples for me and the crew. Some of these samples can undergo analysis and testing while in space, and others could be stored in a controlled environment on the spacecraft and transported back home with us. He stared at me for a few seconds, his eyes wide and his mouth nearly dangling from his jaw like a bell. So what do you think? I think you're going into space. The admiration in his eyes was stunning and had me gleaming like a young boy. Who knows, maybe we leave and stop by the moon on our return. The probe, Michelangelo, named by myself, will enter Undine's domain in approximately 2 weeks. From our current distance, the device's descent will take anywhere from 2 to 3 days. That's when my mission will reach its zenith and when things could get dicey. I'll have to watch over Michelangelo, as if it's a newborn child learning to swim. I'll also have to frequently analyze Undine's tidal patterns and climate, while observing the incoming data, as soon as Michelangelo departs from the spacecraft. Do you think Michelangelo will make it out of that place in one piece? He asked with a worried expression, as if the probe was a living creature, a pet cat or dog. I think so. I'm working with a pretty big budget, and it'll be made exclusively for the mission. Knowing you'll be the one to build him, I'm sure he'll be great. No, I'm wrong. Michelangelo will be better than great. He'll be fucking perfect. I'm glad one of us is feeling confident, I returned, leaning back into his sofa. He plopped himself right beside me, threw his arm over my neck, and pulled me into his orbit with such savagery that we ended up rolling onto the floor. He flipped himself over, partially resting his chest over mine. Don't be so hard on yourself. I believe in you. I'll miss you, you know that, right? I gushed. We hadn't talked about the possibility of my leaving, camouflaging the void that would be left behind with excitement and speculation. My eyes at that moment reddened, burned much like they always do, whenever I think of him. Hey, it'll be a good opportunity for you, won't it? You'll be doing something you're good at, something that could help everyone back here on planet Earth. On board the spaceship, there's a mechanic who's responsible for repairs and keeping the ship functioning, who sometimes also gets the chance to soar like an acrobat in the depths of space. We have a medic doing research on the proliferation of diseases under low-gravity conditions. They all sound like show-offs, that's what. There's also a physicist and a botanist. Our pilot's one of the few men to have traveled multiple times to the moon and Mars, as well as a skilled photographer who captured high-definition photos of cosmic dust clouds. And then there's me, a certified scientist, as he'd like to say. The certified scientist who won himself a round-trip ticket to space. Weeks before my leave, we were lying close to one another in a field of dark blue grass. "You're going to do big things up there," he said. He turned and shined me his crooked smile. "And when you're back, everyone is going to know your name. You know I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm much more interested in seeing the planet with the 3 moons. I swear, man, only you. Everyone here talks about their projects, comments on how much they miss their family. Our captain left his wife 3 months pregnant back home, our mechanic and our medic, 2 kids each. When they turn to me and ask if I've left anything important behind, the first person that comes to mind isn't my mother or father, a house or a car, it's him. I'm the quiet one up here. Space is already deathly silent, but it and I enter into staring contests with each other through the bay window, my eyes versus Undine's 3 moons. I watch them, the triplets that grace the aquatic planet, drawing up conclusions as to what might occur if one of the lunar bodies were to simply explode. Obviously, there'd be no sound, but I'd watch the floating remnants, mesmerized by the rubble, as if catching the sight of fallen snow. In this particular star system, aside from all the planets and moons spread out across the field of space, there's also a bright celestial body similar to the sun back home. The lone star is distant from everything, the same way that I'm years away from my planet, and from the only person more important to me than anything in the whole universe. How do you think things will be like once I'm back? I asked him before I left for my physical and mental training. What do you mean? He returned. Will we still be? You're kidding, right? Come on, I know you're smarter than that. He hugged me, and for a moment, I wished he had begged me not to go. I considered the idea of staying, of resisting the money, and even the chance to see the moon. Promise me you'll be here when I get back. I wouldn't dream of leaving this place without you. I'll be here waiting for you. Me, and this planet with nothing but a single moon. At times I question myself. What's so great about a planet that's essentially all water and almost no detectable land? And I'll hear him saying how we could build floating houses, or architectural structures like the Maldives, or that we can bring out a boat from Earth just like Noah's Ark, and spend our days searching the blue world for a paradisiac island. Who knows, maybe we could even live in underwater domes like the Atlanteans. I'll nod and chuckle to myself, and say sure, as if it's all so simple. I'll picture us both on Undine drifting together in its never-ending pool. He and I, in our own private world, where we'll swim in our t-shirts and play with Michelangelo. Before I left, he gave me an envelope. Open it only once you're far away from Earth. It's because of what he wrote that I know I'll return, that I'll tell him everything, from what I saw to what I dreamt. I'll say how much I remembered, how much I missed him, and I'll repeat the exact verse he wrote at the end of his letter, 3 words more significant to me than Undine and its 3 moons. I pass under the words Goethe family estate and grapple with a queer feeling of unease. The archway is flanked by faceless statues, their features worn smooth by wind and rain. The path to my right leads down the hill, past rows of uniform headstones, to the old convent. Ahead of me stands the Goethe Manor house. The convent was closed decades ago, and the Goethe house has been abandoned for over a century. The only building on the estate that is still occupied is half a mile away, the former Catholic girls' school, now converted to a nursing home for ailing and aging nuns. The breeze lifts the hair from the back of my neck. I hug my jacket tighter around me and walk straight. I cannot place the source of my discomfort. Graveyards hold no dread for me, and I have spent much time inside crumbling buildings. Perhaps it is the trees that grow alongside the path, brought from far-away places and replanted at the Gerda family's command. Perhaps I can sense they do not belong. The Gerda house looms larger as I approach. It is made of a yellow stucco that looks out of place in the gray light of the Pennsylvania autumn sun. It looks tired, with peeling paint and sinking edges, but, strangely, all the windows are intact. I lean down to inspect a monarch drinking from a thistle that pushed its way up through a crack in the stone walkway. It is late in the season. To see one in the unexpected beauty makes me smile. I hear my grandmother's voice. Butterflies are pretty, but moths are special. They carry souls to the moon. But what happens when a moth gets trapped inside? I had asked her. Then the soul is trapped too. Why do you think so many houses are haunted? The insect flutters upwards and drifts past a second-story window. A pale face peers from it, watching me from a room I know is empty. I raise my hand to the girl in greeting, when bony fingers wrap around my wrist and whip me around. An ancient nun drags my face closer to hers. A few solitary teeth jut from her gums like crumbling gravestones in a forgotten cemetery, and her breath is sharp and sour. It consumed the sisters who walked without feet, she spits, her eyes boring into mine, as if she could burrow her thoughts into my head by the force of her stare. Her rheumy eyes fill with tears. Don't let me die here, she weeps as two women appear by her side to pry her clenched fingers from my arm. Not here, not here. One of the nurses leads the old nun away, patting her back and murmuring in soothing tones. The taller one remains and fusses over my wrist. I'm awfully sorry about that. Did she hurt you? I'm fine, I assure her. I apologize if I did something to disturb her. No, no. Sister Agnes is not well. She was pulling one of her weekly runners. She twists my wrist this way and that. If I may ask, who are the sisters who walk without feet? She shrugs. The babblings of dementia. When she is satisfied my arm is still in working order, she steps back. I'm supposed to tell you not to be so close to the house. You can walk around the estate. It's pretty this time of year. It's just that house is not structurally safe. I nod in acquiescence, looking at the crack that runs from the base of the house all the way up the 3 floors. The nurse shivers. This place gives me the willies. Her voice drops to a whisper. Supposedly, before the convent was closed, 2 separate nuns tried to burn it down. The eastern wall bows out slightly. Someday it will split open like an overripe carcass. The nurse claps her hands together. The noise bounces off the house walls. Welp, I better get back before I get in more trouble, she grimaces. Sister Agnes is old, but gosh, she's fast. I wave at her as she trudges across the field towards the nursing home. Before heading towards the old convent building, I look again at the second-story window. It's empty. This will not be my first ghost encounter, nor my 100th, yet that strange foreboding feeling still clung to me as I hurried past the trees, their silhouettes made monstrous in the moonlight. It dogged me as I completed the pedestrian portion of communing with the spirits, the breaking and entering part. I successfully jimmied the lock to the heavy oak doors at the front of the Gerda house and slipped inside. I now find myself standing in the atrium, the yellow-green of the walls faintly visible in the moonlight. It reminds me of a summer sky before a tornado. The moon is bright tonight, and my nighttime vision has always been excellent. I creep deeper into the house. It has been gutted, all the furniture and paintings having been removed years ago. Dust blankets every surface like a layer of snow. The air is stale and dry. Hello, I say softly to the little girl at the top of the grand staircase. I'm here to set you free. I would estimate she is about 7. She is wearing a white dress, frothy with lace, and her blonde hair is the disagreeable kind that hangs limp and refuses to hold a curl. The room is dark, but she herself has a pulsating glow. She is pouting. Hello, I whisper again. I'm here to free you, if you can take me to your wings. I pick my way across the squeaking floorboards. I put my right foot down and the board underneath splits. My foot goes through the hole, and I pitch forward. I land hard and grunt as the air is pushed from my body. I can feel the splintered edges rake against my ankle. I'm sure it has drawn blood. Wincing, I gingerly extract my foot from the hole. I turn on my flashlight and the girl vanishes. I turn it off and she is waiting at the top of the stairs. I sigh and continue towards the stairs in the dark. I prod each board thoroughly with my shoe before transferring my weight. I reach the banister and the moon better lights my way. "Show me where your wings are," I say. The girl spins and rushes down a hallway. I follow. She reaches the third door on the left and passes through it. I catch up and twist the doorknob. The door swings inward and I enter. Aside from a brick fireplace, the room is empty. I limp to the window. I can see the spot in which I stood this afternoon. I turn on my flashlight and crawl around on the floor, but can find no dead moths. I search in the corners and under flaps of sagging wallpaper, but come up empty-handed. My hip clicks and my ankle is throbbing. I sit against a wall, massage my knees, then turn off my flashlight. "Where are your wings?" I call out. "It doesn't matter, I'll find her when I return tonight." She appears next to the fireplace and extends a finger. I frown. "I already looked at the fireplace," I tell her. She stamps a scrawny leg, making no sound and disturbing no dust. She jabs her finger insistently. I scoot towards the fireplace and follow the line of her arm to a black brick. Her otherworldly shine makes it easy for me to see that the brick is not mortared in place, but rather juts out. The brick is rough against my finger pads as I shimmy it back and forth until it is loose enough to remove. Behind the brick I find a small box tied with twine. I look at the girl. She is across the room now, near the window, with her head cocked to one side. I take the box from the recess and blow off a thick layer of dust, then untie the twine. I unlatch the box and lift the lid. Inside is a dead, black moth. I can't imagine how it got caught here. Not caught, I think. Entombed. I think of that yellow-green sky. I lift the box toward the girl. "These are your wings." She nods, her eyes big and mournful. I can easily imagine her sitting dejectedly in front of a mirror as her mother pulls at her wilted hair, trying to make it presentable. I wonder who she was and what happened to her. She is just a child, trapped alone in this comfortless house for a century. I have helped countless other like her. I offer her a smile. "We'll take it outside and set you free." Her timid smile meets mine. I am about to close the box when I see the wings of the moth flutter. It is almost imperceptible, perhaps a mere trick of the light or my breath disturbing the paper-light corpse. Then it shivers again. I had wiped dust from the box. It had been undisturbed for many, many years. And yet the moth had moved. My eyes slide sideways. I can see the girl on the edge of my vision. Her face. There is something about her face. Something, trembly, like her skin is about to slip off. I snap my gaze to her. She looks normal as a ghost can look. Still, "These are your wings." My tone is soothing, loving. She nods emphatically and runs into the hallway, beckoning me to follow. I hesitate, then shine my flashlight on the box. The moth is grotesque and disfigured. It has 8 legs, when it should have 6. Its wings are hard and shiny, its body too long. Is it even a moth? It consumed the sisters who walked without feet was what Sister Agnes said. The sisters who walked without feet. I had walked the grounds this afternoon, walked through the empty convent and the servants' quarters, stood outside the former girls' school, now a nursing home. I would expect a place this old, a place with this much history, to be teeming with tethered spirits. And yet, I found only one. The cold fist clenches around my heart. I turn off my flashlight. She stands in the center of the room. "Did you eat them?" I ask quietly. "The others." She is trembling, struggling. Her face wobbles. Then she slumps. Her arms droop and the glow goes out. Dark spots bloom on her face, spreading, taking the place of her eyes and her mouth. They are made of black liquid, of smoke, of nothing. Her eyes are gaping wounds of darkness, her mouth a black maw. It's like she bleeding shadows. She is still wearing that frilly, white dress. It drifts toward me. My heart batters against my ribs. It's a ghost. It floated through a door. It couldn't move the brick. It can't touch me. It can't touch me. It tugs on my hand. I feel its fingers. Flesh, it can touch. My leg feels warm. I realize I have wet myself. I smile at the creature and close the box. "All right, let us set you free." I make my way back down the hallway and begin my descent down the staircase, slowly, slowly. In one hand I hold the box with its soul, and in the other is my flashlight. I cannot set it free. I must give no indication that I want to flee, no indication. Fire. The nuns tried to burn the house down. It is beside me, in front of me, behind me. It appears and vanishes, circling me, assessing me. Tears leak from my eyes. I cannot tell if my heart is racing or if it has stopped altogether. Maybe I can set the house on fire. I can get outside without the moth. I can hear it fluttering inside the box. It wants to get out. I smile tenderly into the darkness. I know it is watching me though it has no eyes. Let's set you free. I latch the box shut, retie the twine. I'll watch as flames devour the house, devour the thing inside. I laugh in the light of the hungry blaze. The girl is in front of me. It touches my hand. I blanch. It knows it. I blind it with a flashlight, shining the brightness at its grotesque face. Nothing happens. It doesn't vanish. It's not frightened by the light. It was toying with me before, like a cat with a mouse. I scream and hurl the box into the depths of the dark house. I race toward the gap in the doors, toward the tendrils of moonlight peeking through, toward safety, and my foot hits the edge of the hole in the floor. My heel dangles over nothing. I almost regain my balance. Tiny delicate fingers wrap around my ankle and yank. I hear a snap. I crumple. I try to pull my leg from the hole, but I nearly pass out from the pain. My leg feels wet, so wet, and I know I am bleeding profusely. I scream for help, scream as loudly as I can, but only my ears can hear it. I'm dizzy. I taste copper. I try to crawl towards the door, but the jagged pieces of wood trap my leg. Trap me. My flashlight is rolled out of reach. The bulb flickers. Flickers. Goes out. In the darkness, I hear the fluttering of wings beating against a box. It stands over me, toying. Waiting. It only eats the dead. No moth will carry my soul to the moon. Someone in the house. I am awake. I don't recall falling asleep, and am not real sure how I got into bed, but I am awake now. There is a very distant ringing in my ears, sort of like the aftermath of a concussive blast that makes you deaf, only this ringing seems far off inside my head. Must have had a rough night, I suppose, although honestly, I can't really recall the previous evening or any evening for that matter. Yep, must have been one hell of a night. I roll out of bed and my feet hit the cold, hard tile floor of my bedroom. Rubbing my hands over my face, I try to shake the cobwebs of sleep and whatever I may have drank last night out of my head. Glancing out of the nearby window, I see a gloomy, overcast sky and a light rain falling on the leafless forest of trees that surrounds my property. Is it fall? I honestly cannot remember. Ugh. I swear, God, I will never drink that much again. I have made that same hollow promise 100 times before, I am sure. Moving off of the bed, I walk down the hall and descend the staircase that leads to the main level of the house, the top 3 stairs creaking under my weight as they always do. Midway down the stairs, I can see outside through the Amityville horror-style window over the entryway that the drizzle and clouds have settled in and are likely going to be hanging around a while. I'm not going to go to work today. Wait, I don't have to work today, right? It's the weekend, isn't it? I shake my head vigorously and make that same hollow promise to God again. This day is going to be far worse than my night must have been. The kitchen has a digital clock, so I stumble in to check the day and time, just to be sure I don't need to call in a hem sick. Clock says 9 a.m. I'm late if it's a weekday and it is Sunday. Excellent. Time to crash on the couch and do nothing. My God, I am tired. That couch is calling my name right now. I leave the kitchen and move through the archway into the living room, noticing that the hardwoods are just as cold as the tiled floors upstairs. A small shiver moves up my spine, and I make a turn towards the thermostat to crank the heat up before lying down and covering up with a throw blanket hanging over the back of the couch. The worn cold leather of the couch creaks under my weight. I hear the familiar click of the thermostat as the heat kicks on and pull the blanket in tighter, close my eyes and try to fall asleep. Maybe this hangover worst one I ever had and I still can't remember the party. Hell yeah. We'll be gone after a good late morning nap. The whispers start immediately. I bolt upright on the couch, throwing the blanket aside as I do, and scan the room. Aside from me, the living room is empty. The upstairs bathroom fan is running. Did I leave it on? Did I even go in the bathroom this morning? I sneak quietly from the living room, through the kitchen and peek around the corner. Silent as a church mouse. I had to have been a ninja in a past life or something. I look up the stairs and see that the bathroom light is on, and the exhaust fan is definitely running. Maybe I destroyed the toilet last night and left it running to kill the smell before stumbling to bed, I think. But the whispering starts again and it is coming from the bathroom. No time for subtlety now, so I bolt up the stairs. The top 3 creak as usual and burst into the bathroom. If there is someone in here, they are about to get their ass kicked. But the bathroom is empty, and the whispering has stopped. Okay, I am far more hungover than I thought. I flip the bathroom wall switch to kill the lights and the fan, then realize my bed isn't far away at all. Sleep. I need sleep. I am so tired. The bed is there, in my room, dark and inviting. I will just sleep this off and wake up feeling much better. Time for that nap. I lay down on the bed, sinking into the mattress like butter melting on a hot pan, pull the covers up to my chin, close my eyes and sleep. Or at least I think I went to sleep. I am definitely awake, but I don't recall falling asleep or dreaming. The darkness has crept into the room like a cat burglar, casting shadows on the far wall that look like little demons ready to jump out of their 2-dimensional wall canvas and attack as full-blown 3-dimensional horrors. Must be nighttime because I can't see anything through the window, but I can still hear the faint pattering of the rain on the roof. I throw the blankets back, sit up and rub my face again. Still tired and groggy. And hungover. I leave the demons behind me on the bedroom wall and head to the bathroom. The light is still off, so I flip it on. The light from the molded glass fixture dances all over like miniature crystal ballerinas, and the exhaust fan comes on. I sneak a peek into the toilet. Nope. No prayers offered up to the porcelain god in here, I think to myself. As I turn to the mirror to face myself and dreading the sight I will behold in this rough state, sounds from downstairs freeze me in my tracks. It is the unmistakable sound of silverware on plates. Someone is eating dinner in my house. The top 3 stairs creak once again as I fly down to the first floor, burst into the kitchen, throwing the door wide as I enter, and head towards the dinner table by the bay window. There are plates here, remnants of a half-eaten meal on each of them. But whoever was here, eating my food, left in a hurry when they heard me coming. The hardwood floor leading to the front door sounds like a herd of elephants is holding a track meet on it. The bastards are running out the front door. As I quickly head to the entryway, I see the door close and hear the deadbolt click into place. They have a key. They must have because they just locked the door from the outside. I peer through the stained glass window slits that are on either side of the front door, but I cannot see anyone in the blackness of this rain-soaked night. Enjoy the weather, you piece of shit. The idea that someone was in my house, eating my food and has a key disturbs me. There was clearly more than one, and while my past life ninja skills might help me fight them if they return, I don't want to pin my survivability hopes on reincarnation theory. Besides, I am just so tired. Let the cops do their job. I grab the phone off of the wall and dial 911. Nothing. I hang up and try again. Still nothing. There is no dial tone. Did they cut the lines? Bastards. Now I am pissed. They were in my house, eating my food, and now they have cut the phone lines. Well, they don't have a car because I would have heard it fire up and drive off. Their asses are mine. As I storm out of the kitchen towards the front door, I leave a trail of dinner plates, silverware, half-eaten food, and anything else on the counters strewn on the floor. That dull ringing in my ears has intensified a bit. I am tired and groggy, but I don't care. I am pissed. I open the front door so fast I don't even feel the brass handle in my palm. It slams shut behind me. Taking long, determined strides into my fog-covered front yard, seems the rain has let up. I start scanning for assholes and elbows, because I am sure those fuckers are running away. I spend the next hour searching the yard along the tree line, but don't find any sign of people. Whoever they were, they are long gone now, and damn it, I am still tired as hell. I don't have time for this. As I head back to the house, I notice that the lights in the entryway are on. They cast a glowing image of that Amityville window above the doorway onto the stone slab porch in front yard. And the front door is open. I don't remember closing it, but I know I heard it slam shut behind me. I break into a full run and charge into the house, stirring up a vortex of wet, dead leaves in my wake. I notice that the ringing in my ears has increased in intensity, and I can hear the din of whispers over the tone in my head. As I storm onto the cold, slick floor of the entryway, I see three people. The first is clearly a priest of some sort. He is holding up a rosary with one hand, and has a small, open Bible in the other. The second person is a short, sad-looking woman with a floor-length coat pulled tight around her, its fur-lined trim and collar cinched closed with little wooden pegs. The third person is my daughter. I almost forgot I have a daughter. How could I forget her? She is beautiful, standing there in front of me. I have a tremendous sense of loss and realize I miss her so much, but cannot figure out why. Didn't I just see her the other day? Well, didn't I? Images of a beach, the warm salty air on a windy day flash through my mind. My little girl is there and we are flying a kite. I can hear the waves crashing onto the sugar sand shore and my daughter laughing as we run through the surf flying a kite. It was a great day. And she was so young, beautiful and full of life. She is crying now, mouth covered by her hands as she scans the area of the entryway we are all standing in. She looks at me quickly, then her gaze moves on, searching, but for what? The sad, little woman with the fur-trimmed coat, however, looks right at me. She has a grim look on her face as she pats the priest on the shoulder and shakes her head. The priest stops waving that stupid rosary around, goes silent and then moves to hold my daughter as if to console her. "He is here," says the short woman. My daughter lets out a sob, and the ringing in my ears gets loud. He is confused and angry. He doesn't understand yet. My daughter uncovers her mouth and her lips quiver. She squints her eyes as if to hold back more tears. "Can he hear me? What's he saying?" she asks. The short woman shakes her head. "It doesn't work like that. He can hear you, yes. But I don't hear what he says. Just emotions. Feelings. You can speak to him." My little girl, little no longer as I realize she is a full-grown woman now, wipes tears away from her eyes, sniffles and offers a smile. I sort of laugh, because she must think she is looking at me, but instead she is looking just off to my left. But why wouldn't she be able to look right at me? I am standing right in front of her. "Dad, you can go now. We are going to be okay. Mom and I love you and miss you so much, but you have to go. You will be better off." My daughter laughs a little and smiles that smile I always loved to see. "Don't worry, I won't let Mom sell the house. I know you love it." The ringing in my ears is nearly deafening now, but I do not care. Why is she talking to me like this? Why does she want me to leave? And why is she not the 10-year-old girl from my memory? I realize I am screaming these questions at her. The ringing has become full-blown pain in my head, but I don't care. I press my hands to my ears trying to block out the noise, shake my head side to side, and continue screaming questions at my daughter. The short woman shakes her head again. She casts a sad look towards my daughter. "He is angry. He is yelling at you. I can't hear the words, but he doesn't understand why you are saying these things. He is very, very confused. He doesn't know it is time to move on from this life." Wait, what did she just say? I stop screaming and lower my hands. The ringing in my ears is subsiding and instead begins a slow descent into a single, harmonious tone. What does she mean, that it's time to move on? My daughter smiles again. "I have missed that so much. Daddy, we love you. It is time for you to move on. You can't keep scaring the hell out of Mom and I. We appreciate you staying with us to make sure we are okay, and we are, but you need to go." Behind my daughter, the kitchen doorway suddenly flares to life with the brightest light I have ever seen, pure, clean and inviting. That harmonious tone grows louder. Not painful, but inviting. I look away and to the three people standing before me. They do not see the light. It beckons me, so I begin to walk towards it. The short woman pats my daughter's hand and nods her head. Her smile tells me she knows what is happening even if I do not. I move closer to the light, its beams of white falling over me like loving arms pulling me into their embrace. The tunnel entrance is so close now, but I stop and turn to look at my daughter one last time. I mouth the words "I love you" knowing that no sound will come from my lips. The short woman whispers to my daughter. She sobs briefly then says "I love you too, Daddy." I step into the tunnel and let the light take me. The tunnel isn't very long, and the light near the end begins to shift. I can smell warm salty air, and I hear the crash of waves on a sugar sand shore. My little girl giggles. The bus. In 1975, my best friend disappeared. I'm going to tell you what happened. It won't take long because the story is a short one, but that's a necessity of the facts. Quite simply, there aren't many. Here they are. His name was James Wade. He was 13 years old. One night, he went to bed and the next morning, he wasn't there. The front door was open and James was gone. The house, as far as anyone could tell, hadn't been broken into, and there were no signs of a disturbance. James wasn't a troubled child, and his parents were decent, loving and hardworking. They all lived together in a nice middle-class neighborhood in the suburbs. No one ever saw him again. The police had no leads, no clues and no suspects. The story pretty much starts and ends there. Pretty much. But not quite. James disappeared on Wednesday night. I saw him in school earlier that day, and he told me that, the previous night, something had woken him up in the early hours of the morning. Exactly what, he couldn't say. It was late November, and when he'd gone to bed the wind had been shrieking with a vengeance, but when he woke up, everything was deathly still. Maybe the sudden quiet woke him. Sleep is strange like that. Whatever, when he did wake, he woke with a crawling sense of dread, like he'd just surfaced from a nightmare, and, as he lay there with his heart pounding in his chest and the silence pounding in his ears, he heard something. Faint at first. The low, heavy growl of big diesel engine. Somewhere close and getting closer. Then, as it approached his house, he heard a second noise. It took him a moment to realize it was a horn. Beeping gently like someone taking care not to wake the whole street, tapping out a friendly rhythm, a kind of toot 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 toot, but it was a horrible noise, James said, tortured and unnatural, like the honking of a dying goose. He crept to the window and looked outside. Crawling down the empty street at the unhurried pace of an ice cream van was an old school bus, a battered yellow GMC, one of those things that looks like a cross between a tractor and a horse box. It looked like it had driven through a swamp. There were mud splatters radiating out from rusted wheel arches, and dead leaves rotting in the windscreen grille. The windows were streaked with grime. At least one of them was cracked. Some of the body panels had been replaced, and the bodywork was a patchwork of yellow shades, adorned with black lettering that was peeling away, hanging off the sides of the bus like shreds of torn skin. James didn't switch on the bedroom light, and he didn't open the curtains, he just kind of peered through a crack between the drapes. But when he did, the bus rolled to a stop. It stood there for a few moments, idling in the center of the road. Then, its headlights flashed. By now, James' skin was crawling in terror. Seeing an old school bus on a quiet residential backstreet in the early hours of the morning was a strange sight, but it shouldn't have been one that inspired blind terror. But it did. James could sense that something was very wrong. He dived back into bed and pulled the sheets over his head. He lay there for a while with his heart beating, and sometime later, not long, maybe 5 minutes, he crept back to the window. The bus was outside his house. When he inched the curtains open, the horn went beep beep. A friendly beep. The "come on, it's time to go" beep. James went back to bed and this time he stayed there. The horn honked a few more times. A few minutes later, he heard the bus pull away. On Wednesday morning, when I saw him in school, James had black bags under bloodshot eyes. He claimed he hadn't slept a wink. He was clearly distressed. I made a mistake, he kept telling me. I shouldn't have looked, he kept saying. It doesn't mean anything, I told him. It's just a bus. But nothing I said seemed to reassure him. I shouldn't have looked, he kept saying. And that's where my story ends. Me and James went our separate ways at the end of the school day, and I never saw him again. That's it, no big reveal, no explanation, no twist, no climax, nothing. Unfortunately, life is like that, loose ends and unanswered questions. I'm in my 50s now. Sometimes I get nightmares. Sometimes they're the same, and sometimes they're different, but even when they're different, they're just variations on a theme. Here's one. It's late at night. My car has blown a tire. I'm fixing it by the side road. I hear an engine. It gets closer and closer until I'm shielding my eyes from the glare of oncoming headlights. The school bus rolls by. As it passes me, I see a kid in the back window, banging the glass and screaming something that's lost in the roar of the GMC's huge diesel engine. It's James. He hasn't aged a day. I'm not a superstitious man. There's nothing in this story that can't be explained rationally. Maybe the bus had nothing to do with James' disappearance. Hell, maybe there was no bus, maybe he dreamt the whole thing. Even so, I've got 2 children of my own, and when they were young, I told them an embellished version of this story, a story about an old school bus that cruises the streets at night. It moves slowly, like a stalking cat, its horn honking gently, a siren song to curious children, and if any children get out of bed, go over to the window and look outside, the bus will roll to a stop. The next time they look out of the window, it will be parked outside their house. Soon after that, maybe even the same night, that child will disappear without a trace. I told them that sometimes you can see the bus during the day. But during the day, it can't hurt you. During the day it just travels from town to town. Sometimes adults see it too. It can't hurt adults. Or maybe it can, it just doesn't want them. Mostly, adults don't even notice it, but even when they do, they certainly don't notice anything strange about it. Because, although you can see through the windows, you can't see inside the bus. You can't see the children banging on the glass, crying and screaming and wondering why the hell you're just standing there looking at them, and why the hell you don't do something. You can't see the children who gave up hope long ago and now just sit there, staring into space or sobbing into their laps. The children never get old. The bus never stops. My children cried and wouldn't sleep for a week. My wife was livid. I didn't care. I'm not saying that what I told my children is true, it's a bastardized version of what James told me with gaps filled in by my nightmares. Nevertheless, it seemed important to me that my children know that if they are ever lying in bed, and if they ever hear the sound of an engine and a honking horn, they ignore it. Failing that, they should run out their rooms and come and climb into bed with me and their mother. Anything. Just don't go to the window.